So many of you probably have heard that Germany is going to be giving Ukraine Leopard 2 tanks, and also the US is expected to announce they are giving Abrams tanks to Ukraine as well. This comes after the United Kingdom is already going to give Ukraine Challenger tanks. And frankly, all three of these tanks are far better tanks than anything Russia would be fielding, to include their T-90. I've heard a lot of commentary about the T-90 saying that it was supposed to be this Abrams killer tank, and it ended up not being that. In fact, it's struggled on the battlefields of Ukraine recently, and the Russians have been very hesitant to deploy more of them because the Ukrainians captured a T-90M, which is their latest variant, and handed it over to the US, and the US is basically analyzing it. So the United States, Germany, and the United Kingdom are providing their main battle tanks through various countries. I know a lot of other countries in Europe are giving up their Leopard tanks as well. I haven't heard any word on if the Leclerc from France is going to be in that mix as well. But there's a couple of concerns. Obviously, the logistics lines for all three of these tanks are quite significant, especially the Abrams tank. And I will go into more about the tanks after I kind of watch what is this complete shit show that is Vladimir Solovyev's show on Russia One. And I just happen to pause it like at the beginning. This is the beginning of the video, and it's like fucking Dr. Evil's Nazi boy band. I mean, look at this. What is this fucking clown show? Look at these guys. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's black and red and everything's so dark and evil, and like he literally wears like Dr. Evil's suit, it looks like. Anyways, so we're going to kind of watch and see what he says about this, because it's not a long video. And then I'll talk about these tanks afterwards. So obviously he's pissed about the German tanks.
Германию стороной конфликта, и появление немецких танков однозначно приведет к тому, что мы будем считать территорию Германии военные базы.
Yeah, considering. Yeah, that's what they do. They consider everything. We're going to consider. I mean, he's talking about Germany, and I don't know if they necessarily heard the news, because it was broken by CNN, I think, that talked about the U.S. sending Abrams, but it was pretty close to the time that Germany decided that they were going to send their Leopard tanks. So it wasn't like there's this lag time, but maybe it was just long enough that Vladimir Solovyev started this show and didn't hear about it. But he doesn't address the U.S. at all in this period. And I mean, it's hard for him to have this narrative of Nazis when the U.S. fought Nazism. And they fought on the same side as Russia against the actual Nazis. And the reality is he targets Germany here because that's the easy target. And they probably are a little butthurt because they thought they had Olaf Scholz in their pocket, and he was the last holdout in Europe other than Hungary, which who knows what's going on with them, but they're not very powerful anyways when it comes to the NATO framework. And so they're kind of pissed that it's almost like Scholz turned on them. So the Russians are now showing their true colors, that if you're not useful to them, you're an enemy. Also, he says, I think they've said at least once every show that some cities should be legitimate targets, whether it's Germany, the United Kingdom, Washington. They'll never do that. These fucking blustery old men say that shit over and over again, knowing full well that Putin will never pull the trigger on attacking any NATO city, because, first of all, everyone knows that they would be absolutely skull-drugged through Asia by NATO. But as I said in a previous video, they need to maintain the narrative of us versus them rather than the people versus the Kremlin. So it is Russia versus X, whether it's Ukraine, NATO, whatever. That is their main goal, so that it can keep the focus off of how shitty the Kremlin is running the country right now.
Воевать так хитрым образом, делая вид, что не воюют, не дождетесь. Не дождетесь. И Писториус войдет в историю, как один из кретинов, которые привели...
Germany's going to end up as a zone of direct destruction. By who? By you, Russia? I mean, come on. You can't even take half of Ukraine, but you think you're going to be able to roll through Poland and destroy Germany. I mean, I guess whatever makes you sleep at night.
Потому что территория Германии оказалась в зоне прямого поражения. И Шольц, и Бербок, и немецкий народ будет знать, каких очередных нацистских лидеров они...
I mean, frankly, I'm surprised we haven't seen his fake German that he does. He likes to do that. He likes to kind of make fun of people's languages like France and or French and German by kind of making like his own version of it, but he's not doing that here apparently. That's kind of disappointing. I'm kind of disappointed they're not bringing up a bunch of nuclear weapons either, but I guess that's implied with the destruction of Germany.
И воспитали и привели к власти. Это мое субъективное мнение. Мы агрессор. 8 лет вы, сволочи, подпитывали нацистский украинский режим. 8 лет его убивали.
What? Okay. Russia is the master of projecting what they actually do on other countries. And this is a prime example. For 8 years, you've been killing the people of Donbass. Absolute horseshit. That is literally what Russia's done. Since the Crimean War, and it stagnated, that war stagnated on either side of the lines near in the Donbass region, it has been Russia that has broken the ceasefires that have been attempted to be brokered by Europe or the United States or whatever. It was Russia that broke those and killed people in the Donbass. It was Russia that invaded in 2014, 8 years ago. It is Russia that's invaded in 2021 or 2022. That is the truth. And I mean, that is like the objective truth. Like no one disagrees with that. And I can't believe that they would say something like it was Germany. This is Germany doing it. Absolute horseshit. I mean, and the sad part is Russia is such an uneducated country that so many people buy into this. They buy into that. Oh yeah, it was Germany. Germany's been killing people in the Donbass. It's really disgusting.
Жителей Донбасса. 8 лет вы лгали устами вашей мута.
Oh, he did. There you go.
8 лет
I got
вы
his
лгали.
German in there. Yeah.
Вы не видели трагедии Донбасса, убитых.
The murdered children. Did you see the murdered children of Mariupol? The murdered children of Bucha? How about that? Fucking clown shoes. They have no self-awareness at all. I don't know if that's a cultural thing, but they just have no self-awareness. It is just, if something bad happened, it was someone else. Period.
Детей Донбасса. А теперь вы из себя что тут корчите? Европейские фарисеи, подонки нацистские.
The coping mechanisms of this whole country are unbelievable, and it's unfortunate. But let me talk a little bit about what I see going on with these tanks. Now, you're going to have 3, potentially even 4 logistics lines for 4 different main battle tanks. And that's if France brings in their Leclerc. And really 5 if you count the Russian tanks that Ukraine has already been using. But we assume that those logistics supply chains have already been established. So between the Abrams, the Leopard, and the Challenger, you have to stand up logistics and maintenance lines of effort to support those tanks in that country. I fully believe that the Ukrainian tankers, the actual soldiers that will be running the tanks, are fully capable of learning these tanks pretty rapidly. I mean, it's probably 3 to 6 months, if not much shorter, how to operate these in a very solid way. The logistics lines themselves, though, especially coming out of the United States, because the Abrams tank is very resource intensive. It uses a lot of fuel, and it can run on diesel. It is a multi-fuel tank, but it uses a lot. And I'm more concerned about the parts, how the parts get there, how the tank packs get there, and how they conduct field maintenance. I don't know how they're going to do that, but they basically have to start from the ground up when it comes to the Abrams tank. That is going to take many months. I don't foresee the Leopard 2 getting to the battlefield until probably late March, early April. And I've seen a lot of experts say the same thing. When it comes to the Challenger, kind of a similar, potentially late April, etc. But when it comes to the Abrams tank, because of all of the establishing requirements to get that tank running in Ukraine and have it be effective and not just be a giant paperweight for them, it is going to take a long time. I don't expect to see Abrams tanks probably until closer to the end of the year, late fall at the earliest. If I'm proven wrong, great. That means that they got it up and running, and it's been really good. So we'll see how that goes. What these tanks provide is not a defensive capability for Ukraine. It actually is going to provide an offensive capability. It's going to allow Ukraine to not only eject through offensive operations in a counteroffensive, eject the Russian military. It's going to allow them to push into Crimea. And this is going to be a massive game changer, along with the Strykers and the Bradleys.